Well, here he is. We didn't see a lot of this man for a while, but Callum Munro, you came back to the Bass qualifier at Cania Dam, and all of a sudden on day two, boom, drop a massive bag of bass on the scales, and we would have given you a winner's check if it wasn't for that party pooper, Matty Langford. Mate, welcome back to ABT and back to Bass tournaments.
Yeah, mate. Thank you very much. It's good to be here. It was good to get up there and get a few fish, which was even better. So.
We've enjoyed following your progress as an angler back since when you were just a little pipsqueak coming along to the events. Did you used to come along with your old man?
Yeah, my dad. He was kind enough to take us out to every single event, which was awesome. So I was only obviously under 16. So used to go and look at all my idols out there fishing, and mate, just it's pretty cool to come from such a young fella watching it and then sort of evolve into my own sort of game. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Honestly, it's great.
One of the highlights of your career was at one stage you had the ABT Big Bass record. Tell us how big that unit was.
That went 3.87, so a massive fish, mate. And that fish did a lot of good for me, mate. It was an incredible feeling getting in a comp as well, which is even better. So too bad the other fish that I got with it was only a small, because it would have took out the comp for me, that fish there for sure.
It's funny that we've weighed 5 bass limits that have weighed less than 3.87 kilos in the past. So it's great that we have a species that has such a variety. You know, you can weigh in fish that weigh as low as, 250, 300 grams for a skinny bass, and they get up to be, as big as 4.5 kilos in the impoundments now. So it's good to see that chasing big fish was rewarded for you in particular on that occasion, but just generally it's good when one fish can beat a whole bag in any tournament, I think.
Oh, mate, look at Cania. Look how small and skinny those fish were. And you think, they're actually quite big. They're all around 40 centimetres. But for you to get one of those big fish and it beats every single, for 5 fish, it's incredible, eh? That's how it is.
It's amazing. One of the other highlights of your career, I assume, was doing a couple of seasons on the Australian Fishing Championships back in the days when you had to qualify it. What was your pathway into AFC? Remind us.
First, probably it was in 2011, I think, my first time into AFC. I can still remember the phone call from you. I was driving down to Lake St Clair for a ABT comp, and I got a phone call from you, and kind enough to get the qualification on in. And it was a ranking sort of thing, so you obviously had to be very, very good over sort of an amount of time to be actually able to get into that comp. So I was lucky enough to get into it in 2011. I got kicked off that year, but I went really, really well the next year, and obviously won Angler of the Year and got to number 1 in Australia, and that obviously got me back on there, which was, pretty good, mate. It was awesome.
How good was it to have an AFC where you had Carl Jockinson doing the hosting and not the fishing, and you didn't have to beat him on the water?
To be honest, I reckon it would have been good to challenge myself against him, mate. I would have loved to have fished against him a few times. I only got to fish against him probably twice in my career, so it would have been good. I love a bit of challenge, so it would have been good to fish against him, that's for sure.
Take us through, where are you living at the moment? What have you been doing between the last time we saw you on AFC and when you magically appeared again at Cania?
So over the last few years, I've obviously been doing guiding. So I run my own business, Untapped Fishing Expeditions. I do that at a Lake Barumba. Do that not as much. I don't really like to do it heaps and heaps and heaps, like a couple of days a week if I get them. That's all I like to do. But I also do social media marketing. So I actually run my own social media marketing agency where I run Facebook and Instagram ads for a few different businesses around the Noosa area. So that keeps me quite busy. And then, that's pretty much what's been happening over the last couple of years. I ended up going up to the Kimberleys as well and doing barra guiding over in WA, which was a pretty good experience, Steve. It was pretty hectic. Nearly got eaten by a croc over there, but that's a story for another time. I've been having a bit on, that's for sure, over the last sort of 5-6 years, that's for sure.
Well, that's great, mate. I expect this to be the most shared segment of all ABT Live History with some social media marketing expertise there, mate. I expect to see the numbers going through the roof.
We'll get it up, mate. We'll get it going.
Tell us a little bit about your about the skills you learn fishing one impoundment so much. Like, you're obviously a Barumba expert at the moment. How do the things you learn at Barumba when you're guiding translate going to Cania? I know they're it's the same sort of latitudes, it's the same species. With things you learned on Barumba applicable to Cania?
Yeah, 100%. with the blades and stuff that we're using, like I've been using blades like since John Schofield showed us Little Max blades all these years ago, and you just get really confident in using them. Like they're very much the similar techniques that you can use at Barumba, and it can apply it to any lake. It's the same, like you use at Somerset, Barumba, Bunduma, it doesn't really matter. Once you sort of figure out the technique, and you can apply it in so many different ways. Like it's probably 5 techniques that I use with blades by themselves at work in different various times of the year. So it definitely works. Once you sort of figure them out, you can apply it in every dam, that's for sure.
Take us through the situation at Cania then. You caught a reasonable bag on day one, like it puts you in the top part of the field, but not challenging for the lead. Tell us the technique that you used and the adjustments you made on day 2 to give you one of those 2 kicker bags on the second day. The 2 really, exceptional bags on day 2 were yours and Matty Langford's. And unfortunately, Matty's was just a tiny bit bigger and got him across the line. But what were the adjustments that you made?
Well, I went up there 2 weeks prior to the comp with my dad, and we actually found a bit of a secret spot up in the timber. And I knew that nobody would actually fish it because it was too shallow. Like it was around 2 foot for a really, really long time. And I sort of thought on the Saturday, I'll go up there late in the session just to see if we can't get any. And I lost actually 2 good fish around. Obviously, there's that much timber up there at the moment. Lost 2 really good fish. Got a couple of small little upgrades. But the Sunday, I sort of said to myself, like, I probably left it too late. I should have gone up there earlier in that first session. So what I did on the Sunday is like, I'm going to go up there and just fish it pretty much the whole time. So I pretty much went to where I started on the Saturday and fished it for probably 20 minutes. And then I was like, no, I'm going to go up to where I know where I got some good fish in pre-fish, like 2 weeks prior. And I went up there and, yeah, we got them, mate. It was good. I probably, to be honest, like I was really confident. I actually thought I was going to win the comp, even though I was so far back down the field. Like I knew the spot that nobody would have found. I was really, really confident. I was told heaps of people. I was trying to speak it into existence. I was like, "Oi, we're going to win this comp," but nearly close, but no cigar, mate. It's it was a good experience. though, like coming back and going as well as I did, mate. I was pretty stoked.
It is a good group of guys. It's it seems that the Bass has lost a lot of the egos and the real serious guys. Everyone understands now when it's your time to win, you win, and if it's not your time to win, just keep on putting fish in the well because that time's coming pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, you can't win them all. Like fishing is such a hard thing to win because like a lot of luck goes into it. Not luck, but sometimes you can catch the most amount of fish and somebody comes in with 2 bigger fish than you and you're just like, well, that's, you know what I mean? That's what happens. So when it is your time, it definitely is your time. So good on Matty. Yeah, he deserved it for sure.
Tell us about the shallow water blading technique. How do you fish a blade in 2 foot of water? Because most people fish blades in a lot deeper water than that.
Yeah, so I use it like as a shallow water sort of dredging technique. So you're throwing blades, pretty light ones, like the 1/4 ounce is the best one that I've found for it. You pretty much just cast it up and you're just burning it back. You're trying to hit the mud and sort of deflect it off sort of certain sort of objects, and it sort of causes a bit of a mud trail. And when that happens, the bass will just come through and absolutely smash it. So it's not really a slow technique. It's quite fast. You're trying to draw a reaction out of those fish. And yeah, that's exactly how it works. So it's good fun. That's for sure.
Do you use the? I know the Little Maxes, the ones you're talking about. They come with a couple of sets of the double hooks that are upturned. Do you leave it as is in the factory, or do you do any mods to it?
No, I'll show it to you. So pretty much, I just leave it with the W hooks on them. Yep. So the reason why you do that is pretty much when you're rolling it through and sort of hitting the bottom the whole time. If you have a treble on it, it'll obviously sort of hook up very, very quickly. You can apply stingers to them, but I usually try and just keep with the W's. I find them pretty good, and they usually do the trick, that's for sure.
That's it's really interesting. I was down at my local tackle store on the weekend. They had the Little Maxes in the specials bin for $10 each. I thought I'd be very surprised if they were still there a week after Candy, but there was still a few left.
Yeah, that's very surprising. I want to see, they're sort of like a forgotten, I guess, sort of thing. Like I haven't seen, I sort of pay pretty close attention to sort of what goes on throughout the ABTs and obviously all the tournaments around Australia, but they've sort of been a forgotten thing. I haven't seen too much about them over the last couple of years until Kenya, mate. So there you go. It's good.
Do you think it's because they've actually got a fair bit more surface area for their weight? Like a lot of blades have gone heavier and they're quite dense for their size. Those light Little Maxes sort of might have more flutter for their weight. Like you can fish them in shallow water because they're not plummeting.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got a different vibration to most other blades, and that's why I usually use the quarters over every sort of blade. I find they're my most confident lure, even in deep water. For hopping lures, you can keep them up in the water column for a lot longer. So they've definitely, like you just said, they've got a really good action to them. They work really, really well.
Looks like you've got a new sponsor on board, Daiwa, who are the naming sponsor of our Brim Series and our Brim Australian Open. What sort of gear do you throw the blades on? Have you got a favourite Daiwa outfit you do that on?
Yeah, mate. So I usually use like a 7'3" blank. I use these in obviously other companies before going with Daiwa, but this rod here is absolutely awesome. It's a 7'3", 2 to 5 kilo Team Daiwa Zero rod, and I match that up to a 2500 Daiwa Soul reel. So that's actually got a 5 to 3 gear ratio, and it has around a 73 centimeter line return. So every time I turn that handle, obviously getting the 73 centimeters of line. So when you're hopping lures or when you're trying to burn it through the mud and stuff, it is actually moving that lure quite fast. So it gives that bass, doesn't have much time to actually react to it. So that really does help, definitely, compared to using like a 2000 size or a 1000 size. That definitely makes a difference, that's for sure.
And I think those TD0 rods are quite light in the hand. It's when I remember when they first came out, they just are ridiculously light in the hand and a lot of feel to them.
Yeah, mate, they're incredible, mate. They're just awesome. Like for hopping lures, like through this winter sort of period, mate, they're absolutely awesome. They catch stacks of fish and they're just great in the hand, like you just said.
Well, I think since we last saw you on AFC, you've become a very articulate presenter of fishing, mate. You've presented very well on It's Here, and we hope to interview you at maybe at the first place in an ABT Bass event in the future.
Thanks, mate. We'll try our hardest, that's for sure.
If anyone wants to come fishing with you and book you up for a trip to Barumba, how can they get in touch with you?
Just search us up on Facebook, mate. So look up Untapped Fishing Expeditions, or you can join one of the groups that I've created on Facebook called Untapped Australian Bass Fishing. Within that group, you can sort of go in there, you can have a chat to me, you can send me a message, sort of get some information off me, or you can I've created a blueprint, Steve. I don't know if you've seen that out on Facebook, but created like a bass blueprint. It's a 17-page ebook, mate. It's got heaps of information in there to help, obviously, anglers out to go out there and catch more fish. So jump into that group, reach out, and we can sort of charter out or anything like that. So
there you go, mate. You have learned from ABT's motto, who shares wins, haven't you?
Exactly, mate. 100%.
Thanks for joining us tonight on Live, mate. Great to have you back in the ABT fold, and I hope we see you another event down the track.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Champions.